Hello.
How's it going? Hello, AI. Nice to see you again.
It's taking over. Sometimes I can't even tell when it's actually even on or
Doing its
connecting or
well, it's welcome. It's welcome in this meeting. Hello
yeah.
with your skeleton with a tiara? No, with a sort of lace wrap.
All right. Your audio is a little low.
My audio's low.
I think so. Is mine?
No, yours is great. I
Okay.
don't know what's up with mine. That could be an issue. Still bad?
Oh, it's okay. I think, it should be
Let
good.
me see if there's a physical possibility of some headphones. This might take a second, but let me try that.
Okay. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Elizabeth.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm good.
Good.
You're always so consistent. It's good. You're always there.
I try.
All right, we'll give it a shot.
Okay. I love your curtains, Michael. Or is that
Oh,
wallpaper?
thanks.
Is that
That's the
curtains or wall?
wallpaper.
Oh, it's wallpaper.
Wallpaper.
Wow. It looks like it's
Can you hear
translucent.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It is. It's got this kind of gold, almost like a gold paint to it on
Ah,
like a teal, a light teal, so it kind of pops a little bit.
it's
Oh
really
my
like
God, all the AI.
I know they're just
Everybody's
pouring
AI
in.
is like,
It's just
I mean,
we
at least we're not at like a Turing test moment where the AI is more interesting than the humans, but we're
mm,
getting
I don't know. It's about to take over, I'm pretty sure.
it. It's not getting there. Okay. Cool. Oh, there's Jonathan.
Everybody's
Awesome.
note takers are getting in before they are.
I know it's not a good look, I don't think.
My good luck.
Like your note taker is more prompt than you are. Hey, Jonathan, how's it going?
It's going. Got one of my assistants here who really wants to
Oh,
see what today's
nice.
meeting's about. So
Wow.
Oh,
he'll be
nice.
he'll be here for who knows how many seconds before he's ready to move on to other projects.
This is pretty fun though. Yeah, for at least a good 10 to 15. There's some buttons to press and
Oh, there's so many buttons to
lots of
press.
faces to look at.
Exactly. If I disappear, my assistant's working on something on my keyboard. Yes, I know. So many
Exactly.
buttons to press, buddy.
Well, at least
Yeah.
he got his hair all fixed up for today because it looks awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. He's just got infinite artist hair, for sure. Yes. Yes,
Did his
the
AI
chaos
join
immense.
too, or is his AI is a little bit late to the
I think
meeting?
he uses his sister as an AI,
His
so she'll
sisters,
I'm
is
sure
it?
she'll show up. She's the note taker. Yeah, yeah, doing
That's
well. Actually,
awesome.
speaking of AI, I'm in the process of curating an AI poster and video art exhibit for the University of Maryland. And
Oh,
we
wow.
put out an open call, just kind of worldwide, just kind of threw it out there for anybody who wanted to submit. And, ostensibly we wanted projects that were speaking to how artists are using AI, or, either as a tool or as a subject matter. And it's been really fascinating, in particular, looking at the video submissions that we have and trying to like get a gauge on what the tools are allowing for, how people are using them, how people are thinking about them. It's
Yeah.
it's it's really fascinating and bizarro. And just trying to understand, how does one evaluate these things as works of content
Right.
is super interesting. Yeah.
Is the biggest thing the filters, just like trying to separate like what's a filter and what's like original or what's
A little bit. It's I think I'm coming more and more to the conclusion that part of the presentation of AI art wants to be about the process. Like what like that the story of it is in part about the prompts, about the tools, that in particular at this moment we almost need that context to understand what we're seeing, or to kind of get at those salient questions you're bringing up.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big topic today, is just how much in the journal we can cover like case studies, because I'm hearing from a lot of people in my like initial like what do you want from the journal conversations, like how do they make their stuff, walk me through what tools you used, your
Yeah.
creative process, all that. And I'm sure that's something, Jessica, hello, I'm sure that's something you can speak to. That's been in the DNA of Immerse for the past decade,
Mhm.
this idea of case
I would try.
studies and getting under the hood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
welcome.
Thank you.
So let's see. We're still waiting for Sarah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okie doke. Well, let me just do a few little business things before we get started with our most amazing guest speakers today. So most of everybody has been coming. We do have two new people from Georgia State, which is great. We have David Cheshire, who has run journals in the humanities himself, so is definitely going to be very interested. And then we have Aaron Anderson, who does research more in the educational and immersive field. I think that's right, Aaron. And so glad to have them here. And let's see, just other quick updates. We don't right now, actually, it's kind of funny that we're just talking about AI, and I could do I'm the default presenter next month, but I was going to see if we could find somebody that could give us an overview of all the new glasses and goggles and headsets that have come out recently, like maybe somebody from Snap that we've been talking about. So either it will be myself talking about the 5 shifts in the creative industries that AI is causing, or we'll have somebody from Snap. That's undecided. And then Erin is going to talk about a project that she is working on in November. And then we've got somebody, Michael Potts, who's going to be discussing world building and the economics of world building. So that will be interesting. But I'm going to let Michael take it away because he's sort of organized today. And then he's going to introduce Sarah and Jessica, and we're just going to get going.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth. Hey, everybody. Good to see y'all. This is kind of an unusual presentation in that it is part presentation and part just brainstorm, because we just on the heels of Elizabeth and Aaron Riley's great work, just got a grant to start a journal. We have 2 years of funding.
Congrats.
And what's so crazy is like I talked with Jessica a couple months ago, and she shared me like a 2015 document, I think. And it's like we're like exactly at the same starting point, right? Like you guys got a 2-year grant, you sort of like came together. You actually had a festival already kind of as an anchor, but we actually I would say, came together at South by Southwest this year. So in a sense, we also have a sort of festival that's a base for us. We're planning to put out the first issue of this journal for South by Southwest 2026. So there's a lot of parallels. I'll let you two introduce yourselves. And I think that you have a presentation that you want to talk about for Immerse magazine. So I'll let you take it away. But I got to say, like, the parallels are eerie. You know, whatever, we're on like a 10-year cycle. We've returned to whatever house we were in before. So take it away, guys.
Great. Hi, I'm Jessica Clark. I'm the founder and executive director of Dot Connector Studio. We're a foresight and production firm and strategy firm based in Philadelphia. And with Sarah and Ingrid Kopp, who can join us today, we were the co-founders of Immerse, which we ran for 7 years, 7 brave and creative years. And we're here to tell you about that today. So I will pass that on to Sarah.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Sarah Woolizin. I'm the director of the MIT Open Documentary Lab. We've been around for about 12 years, and we study and incubate new forms of documentary storytelling. We sort of create with emerging technology and also use documentary to critique them. We also have a co-creation studio, so we mainly work with co-creative methodologies, but not. And I together with Jessica co-founded Immerse. Jessica was the main editor for many years. I was an editor at large, and then we also had different governance types throughout it, from an editor to we were a collective and collaborating editors and different kinds. So we'll talk about that. It was a big experiment. We were always thinking about what, how we could do things differently, what else to try. I mean, that was the beauty of it, is that we were free to try whatever we wanted. So I think we have a presentation. And Jessica, do you want to share your screen, and then I'll just work with yours.
Okay, I just requested sharing privileges.
You should have them.
Thank you. Sorry. A little slow. It's like 4 in the afternoon. What am I hitting here? Play.
Go up to slideshow in
Yeah.
that corner, and then the arrow there, presenter view, start from, yeah.
Thanks. Sorry. A little distracted. Okay. So Immerse was an interdisciplinary online publication. It was based on Medium. We designed it as a bridge between academia and practitioners. So it had a quasi-journalistic, quasi-arts journal, quasi-academic character. And it was really built around the concept of conversation, creative discussion around emerging forms of nonfiction media. We tried in many different ways to make it a community. We had a newsletter also, and it was a very collaborative and field-facing endeavor. Not a lot of professional writers, only a few. A lot of people in the space who were experimenting were writing for us or doing Q&As or coming through Sarah's lab and helping us to build it out and to write about their experiences and all of their experiments.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think we also really wanted it to be a place where artists could reflect on their work. Often they're making, and there's no place to really sit down and think about what happened. So artists really appreciated the opportunity to write about their work and to have an outlet for that. And we had a lot of people, because there weren't many outlets for writing for this kind of work. People, academics, what have you, young academics trying to get articles out there in front of audiences, asking us and using this as a platform. And as Jessica said, we also had this thought of it as this bridge between academia and the practitioner world, which is what the lab is. So sometimes we use some methods in the beginning where we had an academic write or someone write, a journalist write, and then have responses, much like you do on a panel. Someone will give a paper and then people will respond. So we use that method. And we also really tried to have a mix of writers, so scholars and practitioners and journalists, so a wide variety of writers. And we had a newsletter, which was really great. That went out every month. It was curated by Ingrid Kopp. And it had, pointed to the articles for the journal that month or quarterly or day, but it was monthly. And it also had like projects we were eyeing, and it had articles to read, and it had announcements about festivals and funding, so some of the industry stuff. And it was very popular. People really loved the newsletter, and there was a high open rate for that. And we also had guest editors such as Center and iDocs, who we would give to them to edit it sometimes. Yep, 7 years, launched in 2016 and sunset into 2023. Next slide, Jess. And I guess what else would I say about that? I think it was a good run. I would say that it was a lot of work, especially for people like Jessica, who were the actual editors of each article. And yeah, I think the kind of consortium that you have of universities that's taking this over, I think is a great home for it. Because I think it needs to be in a university because there's never going to be a lot of funding. And it therefore can be cared for people who are already working in that space. And then you also have a nice relationship to practitioners. So to your point, Michael, feels like the mission of Immerse is being continued through your work. And I always kind of envisioned it going to a consortium of universities. So I think that's great. Our audience were other, people working in the field, practitioners, funders, so they could find out. Definitely teachers, academic students read it, used it. Scholars even used it to study. It really was a record of a time, from 2000s. You really see the field evolve. You really get an understanding of what the issues were and how it evolved. So it's a great also kind of time capsule of a certain period within this field. And then, yeah, just general curious readers, although it was harder for them to find it. So you usually had to have some connection to the field or know about someone in the field to follow their announcements or something. So that was our audience.
We found that we had an international audience, especially in places where immersive media had public funding. So in Amsterdam, in Latin America, where Sarah did some work, other
England
places,
and France.
France,
England. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the immersive field is definitely international. I would say there's a lot more going on in other countries compared to our country, even, especially because they have governments who are funding it and really pushing it forward. So that makes a big difference.
So,
yeah, go on, Jess.
oh, it's your slide. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, well, I'll say what I have to say about it, but designed to spark conversation. Definitely, it was about dialogue and critique. Like, we're not just an article doing reviews. It was a publication doing reviews. It really was about putting ideas out there and getting people to question, to understand realities, challenges, opportunities, and spark dialogue. We even had a engagement editor at one point to really get dialogue going online. And so it was, never about this is what's happening, but let's talk about what's happening. Let's be in conversation. And it says here, it was co-produced by MIT Open Doc Lab, us and Doc Connector, which was Jessica. And then Ingrid, when we founded it, Ingrid was at Tribeca, so it was also with Tribeca, but then she left and it folded, so no longer there. And then our first grant was from the Fledgling Fund, which also doesn't exist anymore. But that was our initial funder and really made it possible for us to launch. And then Ford and MacArthur fund everything we do. We thank them. They give us funds for all the initiatives through their funding of the lab. And then Knight Foundation did a special issue with us when they tried the experiment of doing an open call of a challenge through our publications. That was interesting.
Can I ask one question? And it looks like you're probably going to get into it a little bit, but you did say that the newsletter was like really successful. Almost, it sounded like surprisingly successful.
Yeah.
What was the difference in ways that you saw people engaging between the online version and the newsletter, which I think were both, they were separate types of content, but I'm really interested in that conversation engagement question. If you want to tease that out now, or if you're going to get into it later, just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer it now. I'm sure Jessica has something. I mean, I think because it was short, like it had all these links. It was very concrete. It had projects you could, we were looking at it, so you felt informed about different projects happening. It had articles we were reading, so that also was just people really liked having that kind of information that they could then and go view after. I mean, I think the publication too, people liked, but it's a different kind of engagement because you have to read long articles.
Yeah,
So,
we had we tried to make them short
yeah,
at times, but people like to go on about their projects, and it's very complex material, and we were not writing about the same thing every time. So each issue was a learning journey around a particular medium or an issue or like ethics um or people were writing that are not professional, so that it takes a lot to get them to write short. So it's yeah, it was a commitment to come and read a piece, and then we don't really know. I mean, we know which of our pieces were most popular. They were the ones that people had where people had heard of the writers, or they had a big network, right? So the ones that were popular were the ones that got circulated. It's a little bit of a tautology. But I think the thing about the articles is that they serve different purposes for the writers. They're not, they're portfolio pieces, they're learning opportunities, they're funding chances to show funders process. They're used in classrooms. And so thinking about it in terms of just circulation or just audience, or you know what I mean, or popularity is only a very small piece of the puzzle if what you're trying to do is do field building and conversation and dialogue. So
It just taking a guess, it sounds like if we want, if we have a similar objective with this journal to start conversations, we have to look beyond quantitative and maybe look at some more of these qualitative experiences like, hey, it was featured in these classrooms, like it might not have led to thousands of downloads, but the depth of discussion around it
yeah.
is big, and finding ways to promote that kind of use and understand that that's important too, right?
I mean, I think having a newsletter is a smart thing and you should do it. I mean, it's just to be plain.
Well, it pointed, like they're not one or the other, like it served to point people to the journal, and always taught the publication, and always talked about what the articles were that were in there and the theme, and there was an editor's note. So it was in of itself a little thing, but it also pointed to the publication, which is much deeper engagement, but yeah, definitely fewer people.
Yeah. So yeah, just to wrap this slide, Sarah, do you want to talk about it, or you want me to just do it?
Yeah, so ways people contributed, they could write for us, they could suggest articles, We asked people to spread the word. They could sponsor if they wanted to, and they could collaborate, meaning like do a guest issue or something like that. So those were the different ways people could contribute. And of course, they could contribute on social media with comments and such.
So we had more than 40 issues. What an issue was, what it consisted of, changed over time. We had different cadences. We tried monthly, we tried quarterly. We also had a lot of sort of interstitial content that was happening in between. Things were happening in the world. We did a couple of coronavirus issues, like sort of interstitial issues, for example. What is it like to be doing this making while under lockdown? This one's just a kind of a standard one. So a set of articles around a theme, some of which are essays. One of them is a conversation, so you can see that kind of creative discussion element. One of them is more of a reported piece about social media archives of street projections. So this grab bag of pieces, usually an issue is between 4 and 8 pieces, and themed, which is fun. Themes are fun. I would recommend them. And we tried to, as much as possible, given Medium's capabilities, to incorporate multimedia. So we had video, we had audio, we had one audio issue, which had a lot of sound in it. We had, animated GIFs and different, also experimental forms of articles. Over the course of the
just one thing to add to that, we also with the writers, we sometimes had open calls around themes like Publix. I think this is how we got those writers, and sometimes we just chose them ourselves and reached out to people.
These are the many themes, and you can see that. Well, I think what's different about what you're doing and what we were doing is that we started in a moment when the discourse around VR and empathy was very hot. So that was the sort of the prevailing technology that we were discussing when we began. As time went on, many other different types of platforms and technologies and experiments were happening and coming into view. AI was starting to rise as a media making, as a documentary making technology. We found, like I said, audio documentary. Documentary was kind of the loosely interpreted organizing principle because of the Open Doc Lab, but there were a lot of different sort of media and ethics and societal issues being filtered through this documentary topic. Embodiment, so haptic technologies and how they play a role in storytelling. Ethics questions, avatars, all kinds of things came up. This question of VR and empathy did return maybe 3 or 4 times through these issues. World building. So I can share the link to this presentation when I'm done so you can look at this more closely, but just to give you a bit of a flavor. We also had special series. So field notes, those were more about people going out into the world to events and conferences and reporting on what they were seeing. The virtual production bulletin was specifically about like technologies for creation, and interviews with people who were trying new forms of creation. Interface Everywhere, that was mine. That was a set of columns I was writing about the interface, the relationship between the physical and the digital, and how that was shifting in the concept of immersion and how media was coming out into the world, or vice versa. Beacon was Ingrid's. That was more of a curatorial. What am I watching? What are we seeing? What is rising up? I don't remember what our Brave New World was. Sarah, do you?
No.
Deep Reads was an attempt to do article roundups, which is something that would probably be useful in an academic journal, especially if you have other journals you want to sum up. We were doing more like popular coverage or field coverage.
Or books. I did a whole roundup of AI books, I remember.
Hacking VR, that was something that you produced, Sarah, at the lab?
Yeah, we had a course called Hacking VR, and we interviewed people who were guests on at the course, and then put those videos on Immerse.
So yeah, like I said, there were a lot of different ways in which we could cover things or bring people in to write or engage them. Research roundups was another attempt to try to bridge academia with practitioner. The Q&As were the easiest, but also tended to go on and on. So word to the wise, don't rely on Q&As because they don't always simmer down into something so super fascinating. Conference coverage. Conferences, not only did conferences get covered, but they became a core piece of our sort of advisory strategy. We had people who run conferences as advisors, and there was a lot of conversation within the group and within the publication about what conferences are good for and how you run them and how you get them funded and what role they play in the ecosystem. So a really strong theme that rose up through a couple of different projects, which we'll talk about in a minute, was accessibility. Both because we're interested in the publicness of these art forms and whether they have a role to play in society. So people need to access them because we believe access to media is a core principle of democracy. But also a lot of them are very inaccessible, either because they're complicated to understand, they require special equipment, you have to pay, go to Sundance to see them. And then the question of inclusion. So how diverse are the people creating these stories and what are the implications of bringing people with different lived experiences and identities to the table to produce these highly technical and experimental story forms? Why is that so important? How does it change the content and the import? And how can we make that more possible? So those were two sort of related themes that really came back again and again.
Yeah, and also
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. Just a couple more minutes. We wanted to make sure that we have enough time to discuss it. We can definitely come back in here too during our brainstorm period. But
Okay.
yeah, 2 or 3 more minutes would be great.
That's
Thanks.
cool. We can speed through.
So also regarding the accessibility and inclusive, we really tried ourselves to be inclusive. We mostly, except after Jessica had our editors that were people of color, and we just tried to have as many a diverse staff and board as possible. So that was really important to also in the making of Immerse that we were inclusive and accessible. And the deep research is just that, again, when I went out in the world and talked to practitioners, a lot of them, and this is a note for you, they felt like they couldn't access academic research. They didn't know where to find it, or they didn't have time to read it. And so but they were hungry. They're hungry for it because they're making new types of work and so one of the things that we did, and we only did it so much, it would be great if you could put a grad student on this or something, is to take research reports that are out there and summarize them so people get the main gist of that research. And then what we did with collective wisdom and making a new reality was that we publish articles for a few months, just article by article, so they didn't have to read the whole book. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah.
So yeah, we did them in series. One of them ended up being a book published by MIT Press. This thing that I co-authored ended up being a toolkit that was supported by the Ford Foundation and published as a book in book form and as a course, thanks to Elizabeth, in course form. So thinking about how you can mount up a series of content into something larger as you go is one of the lessons.
And also smaller, how you can break down a big chunk of content in small installments for a publication.
Yeah.
I don't know, given time, how you want to do this. We listed a bunch of lessons learned. Do you want me to
I
read them?
think if you can just go through them, quickly, just highlight
Okay.
what they were, because I think this is what'll be the heart of the discussion. So I think leaving on that note is great.
Okay. So first of all, it's a lot of work. It's no small undertaking that you're taking on. But we loved it. We loved collaborating. We had a great time. We learned a lot. We felt like we did some good. It was really the only journal in the field that practitioners could read. There are some academic journals. There was a real need too, because the field itself, there's academic journals, but they're not quite in this spot of immersive. So I think that's also a hole that you're filling, is that you're really about immersive, and you're in an academic setting. As we said, they really appreciated the newsletter. We definitely, a lot of the writers we commissioned to were artists of color, were with disabilities, emerging artists. So it was really a place for people to, not to have gatekeeping and to allow pretty much anyone who wanted to write an article. I mean, not anyone who wanted to, but there was a lot more possibility here than probably anywhere else because nowhere else existed. As we said, the content types, they spanned across academia, smaller journals, popular press. So meaning that we really dealt with a lot of different topics, some more academic and some more general public. Yeah, and it was a great place. Like, as I said, so many people published their research in there from our lab and other places that there really wasn't a space. And this became a place where people would approach us asking to publish their research here, or an article about their research. Jess, next.
So it was
Okay.
very cool to be interdisciplinary and cross media and make it up as we went along and be experimental, but it also took a lot of translation and it meant we didn't have a core audience. Collaborating across different types of organizations, so an academic center, a consulting firm, whatever Ingrid was doing at any given moment was confusing, and fiscal issues were hard to manage, and our time was stretched. You're at least collaborating across the same kinds of organizations, so maybe that's a bonus. The messing around with all the cadences and content types. I don't know if y'all are watching The Bear, but he changes the menu every night or every week. That's kind of what it felt like. It's a little bit nuts.
Yeah,
And
just to add to that, which we didn't say is a really important thing, is to think how, I mean, I think you're doing it quarterly, which sounds great. We also
No, twice a
set it
year.
up to every day.
Actually, twice a year, biannually,
okay,
even
yeah,
less.
sounds
Yeah.
good.
That's a very different audience. We even went to like every few days there was something, like just trying to generate and like use social media, because we're also trying to reach non-academics.
Yeah. And it was, very dear to us. It really was central to our ethics and our values and what we thought should happen in the world. It's hard to get that paid for.
Yeah, we definitely refused things because we didn't want to be compromise our ethics and our values. Me, it was difficult to build an audience without, we're constantly wanting to increase our audience. It's a challenge because it's a small field. And how do you discover it, I think, is also a big thing. But again, we weren't an academic journal per se. So we were also in this niche spot between things. So that made it harder, like who our audience was and how we built it. Yeah, we felt like none of us were really that entrepreneurial to make it into something that really became a big journal. Like, I don't know, there was that games journal that became really big, so we needed an entrepreneur. We did not have one. And it was hard to fund because of the niche topic, like who's going to fund immersive media. And as I said, like being between all these spaces, which is the great strength of the field, but it's on the edges. conferences were a key theme and hub for curation and coverage. Yeah, they really were organizing principles and gave us, also, we would always announce it at IDFA every year, whatever art research we did for IDFA that would be on there. And so we would automatically get people to go through conferences. Yeah, and then of course there aren't real critics, there aren't real writers who write about this. It's all non-existent. So you're making every part of the infrastructure happen through the thing. So it was definitely challenging. And yeah, a university is a good home for something like this, our consortium of university consortium. When we were talking about, we went through a whole workshop of what we were going to do with Immerse. And yeah, I'm thrilled that, I mean, you're not taking this over, you're starting your own, but this kind of thing seems a consortium of universities sounds like an excellent place for it, as I said several times.
Great.
So I'll share that.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. That was such a great presentation. Like, pretty much, I think exactly what we all needed. Before we jump into kind of our brainstorming thing, I do want to take a couple minutes to set up what this journal basically is, so that your questions can go towards what we're thinking of doing with the IXA journal. So, as Erin and I mentioned, we are thinking that it'll be twice a year. We are imagining each issue will have some sections that are kind of repeat sections and newslettery, as you two mentioned in your kind of recurring categories that would come up. Then we're imagining like 3 to 4 articles that will vary but be written in a very readable way. Most of them written by people from the community, but we do have funding to hire probably 2 professional writers to work on articles for each issue. So that'll be part of it. And then in the end, we wanted to have a couple of peer-reviewed academic articles, one being, well, both would be pretty open and user-friendly to all audiences, but we're imagining the first one would be less technical or quantitative, you could say, and then the second one could be a little bit more quantitative. This is based on magazines like Nature that have a similar format of accessible journalist-produced articles, and then the academic stuff towards the end of increasing complexity. We do plan on having interstitial content come out around the year, so we don't just see it as dropping twice a year and forget about it. And also this idea of linking to a conference or two really strikes home with us. We do have, I don't know what Fledgling Fund was like to work with, but it does seem like IXALliance, the funders of this one, which some of you may or may not know, it's an organization, I believe, that's based in Seattle, and it's designed to fund immersive projects that may make social impact. And so we think their network will be helpful in a bunch of ways in sourcing articles, potentially leading to further funding. It's a pretty well-structured and well-funded organization. So initially, we imagine we'll be leaning on them for some types of support. And then finally, I'd say, like, whereas you all sort of had this theme of documentary and nonfiction immersive, we do have an underlying theme of social impact that we imagine will run through the issues, from year to year. But we're not married just to that. A lot of the things you hit on upon, people wanting to know case studies, wanting critiques, well-written criticism of different projects or types of projects. That's all, really interesting to us, whether it is social impact or not. We do also have a bias towards nonfiction, I guess, but also open to all types of immersive projects that, impact people in different ways. So that's our rough idea of the journal. Like I said, we would like to put out our first issue in time for March 2026 South by Southwest conference. And with that, I mean, I think it's just really cool to open it up to everybody here. I might want to pick a little bit on David first, because I know that you've published academic journals before. I know these hybrids are possibly different from what you've done, but I am curious, David, if you had any initial reactions to what you're hearing from your perspective, and feel free to introduce yourself a little more if you want to set the
Yeah,
groundwork. Yeah.
it's great to hear from all of you. Immerse was wonderful. And so I think that's such a good prototype and way to think about. So I'm at CMII, the Creative Media Industry Institute at Georgia State University. I coordinate academic programs. So we have undergrad programs of study in media entrepreneurship and game design and development, and then an MFA program in virtual production. So I work with Elizabeth. Everything you're describing sounds really terrific. And the idea of blending peer-reviewed industry reports, case studies, I think that's really good as well. I was going to ask if you have thought or if Immerse relied on a network of sort of academic labor, like is the thought, is there a budget to employ graduate students or that kind of thing as a way to support it? And then I was also curious, just from the production standpoint, is the thought to produce something in actual print or all PDF'd online? And if you thought about how that's going to be
Yeah.
designed and produced and
I would love, especially on that print thing, I would love for Jessica and Sarah to weigh in on this. Right now, we aren't thinking print for our first year, although I've had a couple of conversations with an academic publisher who I think would want to do print of this. So I don't know. I'm interested in everybody's feedback on that. For the graduate students, and that maybe Aaron, Riley, you could talk a little bit about our plan with that and how you're seeing it going forward.
Oh, are you guys going to talk first? Sarah and Jessica.
I mean,
Go ahead, Aaron.
oh, whatever you like.
Did you want me to talk about the grad students working on it?
Yeah, and the undergrad, just our sort of general plan
Yeah,
for
I
that.
think that's like what our budget is that we're planning on we're looking for someone opposite Michael's skills to that's probably like a new or younger academic who's looking for maybe on the tenure track trying to actually, get their publishing going to be the co-editor. And I think that would be good because the Alliance is not just made up of universities, it's made up of organizations that are doing social impact immersive work too. So I like that balance of bridging between industry and academia at the editor level. And then for the grad students, we think we are going to hire one grad student and one undergrad, and the grad student be really helping with production design. So we put in there to cover a grad student for the 2 years with their TRB. If university, you got to cover their tuition, parts. So we put that in, and then for the undergrad, just an hourly rate. And we thought that that person would probably come from UNL because Lindsay is our comms chair on the board and working already on the website and stuff like that. So putting an undergrad with Lindsay to help support the comms section, so it's coordinated effort, I think would be really good. So we're looking to the universities that are really represented to really get the word out for assistant or associate professors for the co-editor position. And I would think wherever they are, a grad student aligning with them for production design would be really smart.
Cool. And I'll drop those job announcements in the chat. Sarah and Jessica, did you want to jump in? And David, feel free to clarify on that question of like, did you ever think about print matter and is it all digital and how that worked?
So the print that we did were the 2 books, and they were very highly designed and beautiful, and we got funding for them. Well, yeah, you had funding for that, right, Sarah? No. Okay. Well, Sarah used her center budget to help.
You're on mute, Sarah.
Sorry. For the study to write it, we got funding. But then MIT Press wanted to make it into a book, so they
Right.
we didn't pay for that. We didn't get funding either.
I think that the only reason you might want to print is if you want to be archived in a library. And I don't know how relevant that is anymore, or how long it will be relevant, but
Oh, that's so sad.
Sorry. Sorry, I study the future media.
I mean,
But
it could be nice to, if you want to really drop an audience at a conference or festival, certainly having a print version that they can pick up would be a good selling point. We never did that. We had stickers.
Yeah, I think stickers and postcards with a QR code is seems to be where everybody is going nowadays, you
Yeah.
know. I just like keep thinking my son wants to be a librarian and I'm like, what did I do?
David, did you have any feedback on that? Just the print side of
Well,
things?
I think I'm on the same page with all of you that we don't live in a print universe anymore, sad to say. I do think there might be an argument that maybe like if South by Southwest is a featured node of distribution or otherwise, then I could see a situation where maybe every 2 or 3 years, a print publication in maybe magazine form that sort of state of the field kind of thing that's a bigger framework, but not a regular print publication. I mean, that's expensive and it's a lot of work, and we don't read stuff that way anymore for the most part. So that the other quick point I was going to make is the I don't remember if you did this with Immerse, but the idea of creating a good network of peer reviewers for the journal. I mean, obviously you're thinking to do peer review, but I also think that's a good resource to support the careers of early scholars because their service on that ed board is
Yeah,
countable and creditable and
Mhm.
raises
we
their
we
visibility.
do have funding to pay stipends to peer reviewers. So that's in the budget too.
That's great.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
we business modeled this out where this is why we're doing a membership-based alliance. So that way we have a 2-year runway to support the journal and getting it off the ground. And then we have a certain amount of numbers of members to hit that then would actually help support this journal for long-term use. And it's one of the perks that we say about becoming a member of the alliance.
We're doing a lot of tactical stuff, which is really super helpful, but I am curious if anybody has any like high level questions for Sarah or Jessica just about, mission and other takeaways that they had or any of the takeaway things. It really does sound like it was a labor of love and that the three of you really, loved working together. And I think that that's part of the story that we can't lose. Okay, maybe I don't know. I wasn't in the room with you all, but it did look like, that was a big part of it is getting people together who just liked working together. Does anybody have any questions on that level? Just about like, yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so when y'all were showing your audience, I was curious that you didn't really say that any industry was interested in what you were doing. Maybe you just didn't have a segment for that, but I was just curious. I know you don't want to have industry write like promo pieces for their, new hardware or something like that, but were they looking to you all for trends or case studies or anything along those lines?
I mean, we didn't really interface with industry. We talked about trying to get sponsorships. We talked about, yeah, like could,
Mhm.
we get money from some product company, something like that. But we were living in our sort of intellectual bubble, our intellectual
Yeah.
artistic bubble.
Like somehow we couldn't see advertise, we had this very purist view of what it was. Um, we were with IFP at one point in New York, and they were our fiscal sponsor, and they had a whole program where they kind of like Newing, where they took you and like not like Newing, but the idea that they took small organizations or artists or whatever and tried to make them have good business models. And I remember we had a whole conversation. We are like, no, we're not going to do that because we don't want to work with advertisers.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not, I was just, yeah, I was wondering if they were even just people who were interested in what you were doing, but not necessarily advertising, but like thinking
yeah,
the insight that you all were bringing. Because when I look at, the 40 issues that you all have, I mean, it's a treasure trove of all kinds of really interesting,
So much.
you know. So that was
yeah,
one.
no, that would have been good. But I don't, like Jessica said, we didn't interface with them. So maybe they were reading it, but we don't know. And they
Yeah.
never approached us in any way. We always talked about how we should consult. And if we were men, we would have become rich from this.
Well, and we would have invested differently too, right? We would have like bought Nvidia or whatever, and we would have actually bought Bitcoin instead of
Yeah, that gets to the whole we're not entrepreneurs and we don't know how to make money. So I hope.
Well, speaking along those lines, like looking for who the target audience is, in the entrepreneurial world, and then also looking at who the key competitors are. What do you all see? There's obviously a gap here, but this is just for everybody. Who do you all see? Who do you get your news from? Who do you get your information from? I'm curious to hear what names come up.
Ben's Bites.
Ben's Bites. Okay. And what about anybody else?
Well, when I was thinking about this question, we were thinking about it. We didn't put it in here, but Jessica and I talked about it. What's out there? So XR Must is out there, but I mean, they actually now have quite a few journalists and they do pretty good articles. And they're kind of the thing read by industry, by practitioners, that kind of industry. And then I was thinking like on the other end of peer-reviewed journals, and there's like Leonardo, and there's even something called Immerse that's also put out by MIT Press. I came across it. I've never read it. I can try to get that. So what I also think is interesting, and this is where we were, and it sounds like where you are, is you're going to be that hybrid between them, and that doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I was just curious, because the other kind of direction that I think you see is influencers, and as much as an influencer
Yeah,
you would call Kent By, or as much as an
yeah,
influencer you would call Charlie Fisk or somebody like that, who you're just like, oh, who knows about the cutting edge of what's going on? Those are more just like newsy kinds of things. Well, not, I mean, Kent is pretty deep, but
Yeah, but they're like different
yeah,
podcasts. I mean, I feel like they're all
yeah,
podcasts. Like Kira is doing a podcast now, and Noah does a
yeah,
podcast.
no
Ken does
proscenium.
a podcast. I mean, curating kind of the best of the podcasts, I think would be an interesting approach.
Yeah,
love that.
Hmm. Because
I
you just
think,
don't know which one to choose,
yeah,
to
the
listen to.
curation part is, I think, really important.
Yeah.
But
And
again,
no Proscenium already does a state of the like industry approach. It's a little bit theater driven more than, but they are starting. I saw it next stage this year. They really are starting to branch out beyond, which was really good. And they partnered with Gensler on it. And I think that could be a good partner for us long term if we were doing something every couple of years, like David suggested. They've already given us the whole entire academic channel in their Discord. So we're starting to kind of already bring the whole academic community together there, which I think is interesting, of a place for us to promote these two positions and to kind of get the word about peer review. Why rebuild it if it's already been built and just continue to add
Hey,
people?
what
guys,
Discord? What Discord?
The no
no
proscenium.
prosceniums, no prosceniums
Oh,
Discord. We've only had 5 more minutes. Sarah and Jessica, do you have a hard out in five
I
minutes, or
do,
could you stay a few more
unfortunately.
minutes? You both
I
have
have
hard
a
outs.
hard out.
Okay. Okay. So, wow. Well, we've got to wrap pretty soon. If people do want to hang out, I could hang out for an extra 5 minutes if folks want to just discuss it. But I do want to make sure that everybody who came in, Lindsay, Aaron, Jason, Pat, Jonathan, any of you want to throw out some questions? I've got a long list I could throw at them, but I could get access to them later. So you guys go ahead, please.
I just have a quick question. It's a bit of a follow-up about talking about podcasts and other media mediums, because you talked a little bit about integrating multimedia into the what the journal did. And I guess I'm really curious about that for what we're going to do with IXA. And it kind of gets to this question of like, could you even translate something that exists beyond just print into something that's a physical form? And there's always, of course, the question of like, how do you capture a lot of this work that's ephemeral, that's location based? And so it's kind of probably a whole separate discussion for us to have about what would it mean to have a journal that's beyond just writing articles or things that are text based. But that's something I'm curious about.
I did did try doing the same thing, Jonathan, especially as regards to like laying it out as case studies and replicating some of my location-based stuff in virtual worlds. Just so that people could kind of like archive it without having to always be at the location based. And when Michael and I were pitching it to a GOG, we even said like we could use your VR chat and like make this crazy like 3D world like publication. And Amy was like, whoa, 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 that's a little crazy. Like just do a journal, Aaron. So, way to bring in the reins.
I think it's an ongoing. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
I was just going to say we had lots of ideas. We had a thought we wanted to do a podcast. It became a running joke, and so the ideas are not wanting. It's the time and the resources.
Right.
I do think there's a big lesson learned around you guys spinning up the format into different things and trying a lot. And do you recommend that in the first issue or two, or because it does sound like it became unwieldy because there were so many shifts in your format and what you were putting out and the cadence of it and things like that. Do you have any advice around that for us if we did try a VR chat version, is there a way that we could sort of time box it and say it's a special experiment and then we may never do it again? Whereas we want to like hold on to like a certain format throughout those first 2 years to keep it consistent.
I mean, we were like drunk on experimentation. Like that was part of our ethos and DNA. So I think, yeah, if you frame things as experiments or if you frame things as special events, then you're safe. But you should choose your one or two formats and stick with them so there's some consistency.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good idea.
Erin Anderson, did you want to throw something into the mix?
Any like mistakes that y'all encountered that you would advise this next journal to not do?
Well, in the complicated section, the reflections, there's more, but yeah, I mean, I think don't get burned out. Make sure you have can keep that you don't overpromise. I mean, that kind of gets back to the many experimentations, like make the work manageable. So, if you're only you're gonna do it twice a year, that's great. And then in between, you can try different things. I mean, the freedom you have is you have this journal, and then you're going to do stuff in between, and you can experiment a lot with that, like move across platforms and stuff. But you have this stable, like twice a year, which seems very doable to me. I think we got ahead of ourselves, especially at the end, with like trying to put content all the time, and that was just a big mistake because we were not financed that way.
Well, we had a running joke, which was let's make a podcast. It's like, yeah, sure. That'll be easy. Let's add that onto the other like unpaid, like unfunded mandates that we do for no good.
Ingrid and I really
I'm thinking scarcity is a great tool right now. Like even with my live stream I was doing, I just needed a break. I'm like, it was a season and I'll come back for another season.
Yeah.
The way you frame it, I think can create that scarcity.
And I've noticed that people just do publish when they can and no one cares,
Yeah.
Like I just saw a newsletter from someone and I thought like, gosh, when was the last time I got a newsletter from her? Okay, she puts one out when she has enough to say, but she doesn't feel like she has to do it every month or what have you. So I think really not overextending yourself or setting unrealistic expectations. Or try that at the beginning where you have all the energy, but then to keep going and be sustainable, you have to have this, sort of more reasonable, realistic view of what you can do.
Speaking of overextending, we're at 2:00, 2:01 at my time, and 5:00 on the East Coast. So we're going to let everybody go. You all are amazing. I really appreciate that presentation you put together, and I'll be bugging you for it and maybe bugging you as we
I put it in the
get
chat,
production.
so don't.
Oh, awesome. So I don't have to bug you that way. But thanks again. Big round of applause for Sarah and Jessica and Lessons Learned.
Thanks for the walk down memory lane. We had to go back through the archives and be like, look at all the stuff we did.
Yeah, you need to
It's really
monetize
great.
that. Now you need to get entrepreneurial.
Exactly. All right. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank
Have a great
you.
night.
Bye, everyone.
All right,
Bye bye. Bye bye.
come on.